10,000 containers, frozen at America's ports. This wasn't a weather delay or a labor dispute. This was a policy detonation with a silent fuse. Truckers quitting, retailers filing bankruptcies, essential supplies now being looted from stalled freight yards. And just when the system broke, Washington triggered a tariff surge no one's ready for. So what happens when the world's biggest cargo wave slams into ports already collapsing? You're about to find out. On May 15th, 2025, 10,000 containers sat idle at U.S. ports, not because of worker strikes or infrastructure failure, but due to tariff policy whiplash. According to Bloomberg, container bookings from China to the U.S. plummeted nearly 50% year over year, driven by weeks of punitive 145% tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. At the port of Long Beach, incoming cargo fell 35% last week, alone with Gene Siraka, executive director of the Port of LOA, warning on CNN that trade with China is very limited right now, adding that the system is seeing an unprecedented disruption. At one point, on May 10th, not a single vessel left China bound for Southern California, a scenario unseen since the COVID-19 lockdowns. Yet even amid this paralysis, a new destabilizing surge is already building behind the curtain. The sudden shift from 145% to 30% tariffs, part of a 90-day U.S. China de-escalation deal, announced May 13th, sparked an aggressive cargo rush, not a recovery. Peter Bukvar, economist at the Book Report, stated that we're about to see a spike in container bookings, the likes of which we've never seen before, as retailers move urgently to front-load inventory before tariffs snap back. According to Flexport's early projections, bookings surged nearly 22% within 48 hours of the announcement, while Charles Vanderstein, North American president of Maersk, told CNN that many businesses had frozen their supply chains entirely and are now scrambling to reactivate them. But with U.S. port staffing still below pre-pandemic levels and rail terminals already congested, this tariff reprieve may not bring relief. It may trigger a system overload. Truckers are staring down economic ruin as freight availability collapses. According to the North American Punjabi Trucking Association, thousands of independent operators are reporting volume declines of 60% or more, and rates on key West Coast dredge lanes have fallen below break-even thresholds. Nav Gill, a California-based fleet owner, told CBS his drivers have gone from 50 container moves a week to barely 10, adding, "Our bills haven't changed, but our revenues vanished." American Trucking Association's data shows owner-operator bankruptcies spiked 31% in April 2025, coinciding with the tariff spike. And the problem isn't isolated. Savannah, Charleston, and Houston are now seeing similar breakdowns in load dispatch. But what happens when goods finally arrive and there's no trucking force left to move them? Kansas City rail terminals, hundreds of miles from any port, have become choke points in a crisis they didn't cause. Over 2,000 containers have been stranded in local yards for more than 7 days, many carrying time-sensitive goods like school supplies, parish shovels, and medical equipment. The Wall Street Journal reports that backlogs in inland hubs are rising fastest in the Midwest, where terminals like Chicago's Global Fee and St. Louis Trey report average dwell times up 47% in just 2 weeks. Logistics analysts at DAT Freight and Analytics say misaligned container flows and delayed rail transfers are compounding the problem with containers out of sync with chassis supply and driver availability. But the real threat isn't what's stuck, it's what's coming. And whether inland hubs will break under the next wave of cargo pressure. This didn't start at the docks, and it won't end at the rails. What we're watching now is the unraveling of a system that once ran like clockwork, and it's picking up speed. Far from providing relief, the 90-day tariff pause may set the stage for a catastrophic flood of imports. According to projections from the Northwest Seaport Alliance Container, volumes could surge up to 35% above seasonal norms by late June as importers rush to beat the tariff deadline. Jonathan Gold of the National Retail Federation told CNN we're smack in the middle of the holiday stocking season. Retailers are front-loading now to avoid another tariff shock, but port staffing remains stretched. Truck capacity is evaporating, and intermodal infrastructure is misaligned after 2 months of suppressed activity. One Port of Seattle official called it a logistics whiplash event, a flash flood hitting an already drought-damaged system. And with Chinese vessels now reactivated and over 1,000 scheduled to arrive in North America over the next 6 weeks, according to marine traffic data, the risk isn't slowdown, it's systemic failure. In theory, tariffs were meant to shield American industries. In practice, they've destabilized the very systems they were supposed to reinforce. Between April and May 2025, the U.S. imposed back-to-back duties peaking at 145%, which the U.S. Chamber of Commerce said resulted in unsustainable cost burdens for small businesses. According to data from Bloomberg, the average import cost of a 40-foot container from China surged from $250 to over $4,800, doubling logistics expenses in 6 weeks. For smaller importers, these tariffs weren't barriers. They were kill switches. A family-run furniture wholesaler in Savannah canceled all second quarter orders, citing a 93% increase in landed costs. And even the NRF warned that the disruptions caused by rapid tariff changes are undermining long-term planning for retailers. But while policymakers called this leverage, the logistics sector called it sabotage. And the next breakdown, it's no longer just about policy. It's about affordability at the checkout line. Shoppers may not see empty ports, but they'll feel it when essentials vanish or double in price. The National Retail Federation's May 2025 forecast projects a 20.6% drop in import volumes through July, with clothing and toy inventories expected to shrink by over 30%. Meanwhile, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that import-driven inflation pushed consumer electronics up 12.3% year over year. What's more alarming? The rising cost isn't due to scarcity alone. It's fueled by holding fees, storage penalties, and diverted shipping charges. According to Reuters, retailers are paying $80 per day in detention fees per stalled container, costs that compound over weeks of inactivity. While giants like Walmart can absorb the hit, thousands of independent retailers across Texas and Florida have already filed for bankruptcy in Q2 2025. One mid-sized importer told the Wall Street Journal our margin disappeared overnight. Tariffs made it unprofitable to sell anything. But sticker shock isn't the only threat creeping in. There's something darker moving through the shadows of abandoned freight yards. With freight stuck in limbo, organized theft has surged. Container crime is up 40% year over year in Los Angeles and 36% in New Jersey, according to data from the National Cargo Security Council. Criminal networks are targeting idle ports, exploiting reduced staffing and delayed security patrols. In a May 2025 briefing, LAPD investigators confirmed that nearly $4 million worth of high-value cargo, primarily consumer electronics, cosmetics, and branded apparel, was stolen from 2 Los Angeles area terminals in under 3 weeks. Some freight companies are now hiring private armed guards to patrol stacked containers overnight. Others, facing rising insurance premiums, are abandoning recovery efforts altogether. The Port of Seattle reported 12 attempted breaches in April alone, triple the 2024 average. These aren't isolated incidents. They're a systemic symptom of breakdown where misaligned logistics are now creating financial targets. But this unraveling isn't confined to theft or traffic. It's about the fragility of the system we've come to depend on. What's unfolding isn't a crisis. It's a countdown. According to the Marine Exchange of Southern California, at least 1,000 cargo ships are now queued to reach U.S. ports over the next 6 weeks as retailers flood the system ahead of the tariff pause expiration. Gene Soroka, Port of LAA, ILA, Executive Director, warned on CNN that the terminals are not ready, citing a projected 25% shortfall in staffing and chassis alignment. Inland bottlenecks are compounding. Kansas City's container dwell times hit 8.2 days, up from 2.9 pre-tariff spike, while Chicago and Atlanta report warehouse vacancy rates climbing not from expansion, but from lack of inbound freight. The International Longshore and Warehouse Union has issued layoff warnings, and the North American Punjabi Trucking Association has flagged a potential mass exit of independent drivers if freight volumes don't stabilize. None of this is theoretical. Every stalled container carries a chain reaction: empty shelves, lost wages, missed deadlines. And yet the federal response remains fragmented. The clock is ticking. But who's listening? The surge is coming, but the system's already broken. This isn't a forecast. It's logistics déjà vu with higher stakes. In 2020, we saw shelves go bare. In 2021, ports jammed for months. But this time, the crisis isn't caused by a virus. It's built into the economic design. The White House calls it a realignment. Ports call it a disaster in slow motion. And businesses, they're just trying to survive the next 90 days. So here's the question. If the most advanced supply chain in the world can grind to a halt over tariffs, what happens when the surge hits a workforce that's already quitting terminals that are still under-equipped? And a retail system out of buffer room? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because if 2025's shipping shock doesn't wake up, Washington, the next collapse won't be delayed. It'll be delivered right to your front door. We're glad you're enjoying this video. Please like and subscribe. Check out another video that is now on your screen.